Okay, before we start to talk about the Parsha, I want to begin with a story, being that we are about to enter into the month of Elul. And it's customary in the month of Elul to check your tefillin and your mezuzahs. So I want to tell you a story about tefillin and mezuzah. And that is, in the 1980s, there was a person by the name of Avram Tamir. And he worked for the Eastern Airlines, and he was an aviation's engineer. He decided to strike out on his own and to start his own business. So he writes a letter to the Lubavitcher Rebbe for a bracha. Instead of answering with a blessing, the Rebbe says to him, you should check your tefillin. So he brings his tefillin into the local sofer, and the sofer opens it up, and he sees that the crowns on the letters are a little shvach, it's a little weak. And you know that there are 7 letters that require crowns. That the letters of Shatnez Getz, Shin, Ayin, Tes, Nun, Zayin, Gimel, Tzadik. Those letters require a crown. It's a halacha, a law from Moses at Sinai. And the crowns were a little bit shvach, so he fixed them up. He put more ink on it and made it strong and gave it back to the person. He said, I fixed your tefillin. And so Avram Tamir sends a letter back to the Rebbe. I checked my tefillin. They found a problem with the crowns. And now I want a bracha for a business. The Rebbe responds again, check your tefillin. So this time, he decided, instead of bringing the tefillin to a local sofer in Miami, he's going to send it to New York. So he sends it to New York, and the sofer opens it up, he checks it out, he says, look, I don't find any problems here with the writing, but I found the problem with the boxes. The boxes have to be square. If the boxes are a little more off, if it's round or if it's rectangle, it's not kosher, it has to be square. So he said, I fixed it, and now it's good. He sends it back to Avram, he says, you should be okay. He now writes a letter to the Rebbe. Rebbe, I checked my tefillin, they fixed the squareness of the box, it's kosher. The Rebbe responds to him again, check your tefillin. So he goes to a third sofer, again a local sofer, a new local sofer. He says, look, you got to find something here. Because mysteriously, the last 2 checks were insufficient. And the third sofer opens it up, and he goes through the writing very, very meticulously, and he calls up Avram and says the following, come down, I want to show you something. Let's sit down and read the portions together. There are 4 portions in the Shema, in the Tefillin, Shema, V'hoi Mishemoya, V'hoi Kivyacha, Kadesh. And as they're reading through one of the portions, an entire verse is missing. An entire pasuk is missing in the chapter of the Tefillin. He then writes back to the Rebbe for a bracha. In the interim, Avram's daughter was in New York. She was learning at a seminary. It was the first time she came to see the Rebbe. And as she's going by for dollars Sunday morning, again, the first time that she sees the Rebbe and the first time that the Rebbe physically sees her, he gives her $1. He says, this is for your father, a bracha for parnasa, a blessing for success in business. And soon after, the father receives a letter from the Rebbe, again, a bracha for parnasa. Back in Miami, a few days later, a man that never met him before knocks on the door, and he says, do you fix airplane parts? He says, I do. He says, look, name your price, because I have 200 parts that need to be repaired right away, immediately. Money is not an issue, but speed is. And so he gives him the 200 parts. Avram charged him between $2,000 to $5,000 a part. Do the math. It's anywhere between $600,000 and $1 million he made overnight because he checked his tefillin. And
I wonder what verse was missing.
This time he wrote back to the Rebbe to thank him for the blessing, and the Rebbe again responded, Bracha v'atzlacha on all of your efforts. We see over here the importance of checking one's tefillin and mezuzah in the month of Elul, and to have kosher tefillin and mezuzahs. And as the Rebbe tells us, it's not only good for parnasa, for earning a living, but for health and success and shalom bayis. And the Rebbe states clearly that by doing this in the month of Elul, by checking your tefillah on mezuzahs in the month of Elul, this is a good omen to guarantee you to have a good year, that God will inscribe you and seal you in the book of life for a shana tova mesukah, for a year that is good and a year that is sweet. And it's customary already at this time to wish one the other aksiv aksim b'tova. So when you're writing your texts or your Facebook or your emails or old-fashioned snail mail, make sure you write on the bottom of the letter to be inscribed and to be sealed for a happy and healthy, sweet New Year. So that is the first story I wanted to